Steiner, with so much talk about climate change, what can the environmental community do to put biodiversity conservation and ecosystem conservation at the heart of the debate about mitigation and adaptation?
Well, in some ways it is already at the heart, because if you look first of all at where the impacts of climate change are going to be most visible, they're going to be in, if you want the broader sense, our ecosystems and biodiversity. It will affect our hydrological flows. Therefore, if you want to deal with climate change, you have to deal with wetland ecosystems. You have to deal with how we manage our mountain ecosystems, our forest water towers around the world. Adaptation, how we adapt to climate change, is another example. We have to have greater ecosystem resilience in order to deal with climate change. And finally, examples such as reducing emissions from deforestation, i.e. maintaining tropical forests as carbon sinks or carbon stock in protected areas, is now becoming an economically viable enterprise, if you want. Norway has put $2.5 billion on the table at the Bali climate change negotiations for the next 5 years to help pay for these services that many developing countries are providing. So we are seeing, in a sense, the convergence of climate change related actions that are also of immediate benefit to biodiversity, and indeed maintaining biodiversity and ecosystems is an integral part of coping with a world in which global warming is going to occur.
Okay, and what do you expect from Congress? What would you like to see in terms of pushing the agenda forward?
Well, I've always believed that IUCN, in a sense, is a barometer, and what a Congress like this must deliver in many ways is, first of all, a validation of the kinds of things that are now considered best practice. That's why there are so many workshops, people present their latest ideas. But at the end of a Congress must also come, if you want, a perspective, a horizon, a clarion call, perhaps also a sense of how paradigms have to shift within the environmental community, but also what the environmental community is saying to society. And while it is difficult when you have thousands of voices speaking, that I think is one of the core functions of the Union. It is to bring these voices together and to provide, at least in broad parameters, a common direction. And I hope Barcelona will do precisely that.
And finally, how do you see the partnership between UNEP and IUCN unfolding in the next few years? Where can they be most effective working together?
Well, I think if you look back over the past 30 years, I mean, this is probably one of the most long-standing and closest partnerships that has existed in the world of environment, partly because IUCN existed before UNEP, it was part of bringing UNEP about. I think where I still look for perhaps a shift is that we are very often in an opportunistic mode of working together. And I think there is not yet enough clarity between our constituencies, who essentially are responsible for us, and us as members of the secretariats or the commissions, the organizations, of what exactly is the complementarity between the Union and the United Nations Environment Programme, often working on the same issues but with different functions and different focuses. And I think this is where we still have some need for strategic direction, but we have begun that, and our senior management teams are now meeting at least twice a year, and we are setting out some common objectives, but translating those into concrete action is as often a bigger challenge.
Achim Steiner, thank you very much.
A pleasure, Madam Anna.